It's the Growler with PD&Jay, here to analyze for you today. From Growler Bet to JaysGotStats, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler Podcast.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of PD&Jay on the Growler. Paul Dehner Jr., Jay Morrison, excited to be with you on a Thursday, Browns week. How we doing?
I'm doing great. This is one of the best days of the year. Do you know what it is?
I don't. What do you got?
Happy First Pour Day. Christmas ale is available starting today, just in time for all the Bengals scribes to make a trip to Cleveland this weekend.
Just in time for the big trip to Cleveland. Christmas ale notoriously gets us in trouble up there, and it notoriously gets people everywhere in trouble. Kind of part of what it makes it so good. It was almost like they planned this game around this. Make sure. Look. They're like, we think we've got the full schedule. We've spent weeks going through algorithms. They're like, wait, stop. You have Bengals going to Cleveland before Christmas ale first pour, okay? Can't have that. Got to wait, push it back a week, so here we are. Perfect timing. Love that. Love that for us.
Huge weekend in Cleveland this weekend, too. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, possibly a Game 5 Saturday night or Saturday afternoon for the Guardians. There's a lot going on before the Battle of Ohio.
The one everyone's talking about up there, without question, on that list. A lot of stuff, of course, we want to get to on today's show. Hey, episode 99 for us. It doesn't seem like it's been that many since we started this thing up in March, but it has. Mark and I planning big-time celebrations for number 100 tomorrow on Who Day Light, so make sure you check in with that one. We're going to talk a little bit about some offensive trends and a gritty T. Higgins, not a Jamar Chase gritty, but playing gritty T. Higgins. We're going to hear from Joe Burrow. You're going to hear from Dan Pitcher on a few different trends, running game, passing game. I've got a chart that I'm pulling back out, blowing some cobwebs off of that blew my mind when I did it. And so I'm excited to bring that to you. You are going to hear from our great friend, longtime friend of the program, the Athletic Zach Jackson, joining us from the factory of, I don't know what's lower than sadness, but Zach's there. So whatever that emotion is, Zach certainly brings it to the table. So you're going to catch up with him. That is already up on the YouTube channel, which I hope you follow us on YouTube and watch all our stuff on YouTube. You can get early access, Growler Bites with just YouTube onlys up on there. So make sure you're following and rating and subscribing there and all of those things. We'll, of course, have this week's Growler Bet, some run, pass, or boot, some predictions, all of that stuff coming your way on today's show. All right. Got to tell you, I'm excited. Cincy Shirts has the Growl Pal shirts out. You can go and you can get them. You can use Growler Pod as the promo code. We were telling you about. There's also a So You're Saying There's a Chance shirt with the old Dumb and Dumber, but with a stripe on the shirt. As we of course went through some of the bleak numbers from earlier this year. That's not bad. If you can still sneak it in before the numbers start going in the Bengals' favor potentially, or maybe it'll be the perfect shirt for this entire season as we continually talk about long numbers. But I highly recommend going there. There's a bunch of good ones up there, including a good one for the whiteout game that's coming against Philadelphia on the 27th. So you can go to cincyshirts.com, use Growler Pod as the promo code, easy for me to say, and 10% off on anything you buy there, not just Growler merch or anything like that. Jay, where it will be a great place to wear your Bengals whiteout ghost t-shirt that they made at Cincy Shirts?
My second home.
Your second home, certainly on Thursday nights when they do the second chance drawing. Yeah, to BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar. Our next live show, the game time has changed, okay? So now the Eagles-Bengals game on the 27th is now at 1 o'clock. It was in the 4 o'clock window. That can't stop us. You can't slow us down, NFL. We're not having that. We are still going to go. Live show's still kicking. We are just going to start at 10 a.m. Get the bloodies fired up, okay?
Yeah.
Let's go. Get your breakfast going. Let's go early. 10 a.m. We're going. We're going to be all over. Guess what? Tim Crumry is going to be our guest, Ring of Honor defensive tackle. Timmy's going to come join us. Excited to have Tim Crumry there. I call him Timmy now, apparently, which I'm excited about. It's going to be great to have him there. He's going to do meet and greet autographs and stuff as well after we leave. So going to be awesome to have him come join us. Of course, we wanted to have him on the Ring of Honor night, but touch busy. Tim Crumry was, but he said, I got you on the next one. And so we're excited to have him there for that. Free graders, $3 Cincy lights, merch giveaways. You know it, man. It's such a good time. It's going to be a blast down there. 10 a.m. we are going to do our show. We'll be going till about 11 that morning, and then we're going to be busting it over to the stadium. It's going to be a little tight for us to get in by inactives, but we can do it. We're doing it for you because we want to be there for you.
That's right. The shows mean that much to us. I mean, typically, you're about the same as me, right? About 3 hours before kickoff, we get to the stadium, which would be 10 a.m. So we're going to start the show at 10, and full show. We're not going to cut it short. Full show for all you guys to come down, get the morning started. $3 Cincy lights. They taste just as good in the morning as they do in the afternoon.
I'd contend they taste better. You know what? That's what I'm saying. Start it off the right way. It's sort of like being at the airport. You know, on a game day, there's no time you can't have a beer. All right? 6 a.m. doesn't matter. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? News, Jay, as we get into Bengals-Browns. The BetMGM line has Bengals at 5.5 favorites in Cleveland against the Watsons. Over-under at 41.5. Sounds about right. That feels about right for this one.
It's bounced around a little bit. It opened at 5.5 before they even kicked off against the Giants, and then I think people saw how the Bengals played against the Giants, and it went down to 4.5, and then it got as high as 6.5. And then I think the news that Chubb is coming back brought it back down. But yeah, I don't remember seeing a line bounce around this much without a significant injury. But yeah, that feels about right. I've always contended in this rivalry, you take the points. I don't care what's going on. It seems it's cliche, throw the records out, but it seems like this happens a lot in this rivalry where the underdog sneaks up and bites the favorite. Although the last few years that's not been the case because it's been all Cleveland.
Yeah. You know another reason that you can think that this one might be close? Because guess who this week's referee is? Ron Torbert. Oh, the evil Ron Torbert will descend on Cleveland, Ohio. Do you like our evil music there, Jay?
Great. I love it.
Yeah, that's
wait for Vincent Price to come in.
Yeah. Ron Torbert. Ron, he's been a part of a couple tough moments for Bengals fans. And so I think he certainly wears the evil hat. And he will show back up in this one.
Here's the thing about this, though, because everybody says, they think about the Super Bowl and they're like, oh, the holding call on Logan Wilson against Cooper Kupp. Ron Torbert didn't throw that flag. He just announced it. It's a whole crew working, but his crew is throwing the second most penalties in the league this year, and it's up 33% from last year when they led the league in penalties thrown. 12.8 last year, 16 this year. But yes, it's not just that Super Bowl moment. It was the AFC Championship game the following year. The free third down that the Chiefs got. There've been a lot of moments with Ron Torbert, and I don't think anybody in Paycor Stadium was happy to see that announcement that he had the game this week.
No, that's all right. Torbert is here. All right. Injury report, pretty injury-free-ish, honestly. DJ Turner was limited with an ankle, and that's it. Everybody else was a full participant that even had their name on it. Nick Cosgray, director of rehab, man, he's gone from the busiest guy in the building to Mr. Lonely. He's just out there, no one to talk to, really, just kind of hanging out.
It's 2 weeks in a row. I mean, there was more people on the injury list last week, but nobody on once they cleared DJ Ivy last week, nobody over there on the rehab field with Nick. So yeah, he's just cashing checks and not having to do much during practice.
Well, he's earned it when you consider not just this, but the off season that he's also gone through. Anytime you're in a full off season every day working with number 9, a lot of eyeballs on your job that you're doing there when you're Nick Cosgray. All right, we talked to Lou Anarumo yesterday, and he discussed a little bit about kind of where they're at, the plan for Cleveland, what happened in New York, and anything stick out to you, Jay?
Yeah, I thought one of the more interesting things, we talked about it on Tuesday's show with the young guys getting more snaps and Jordan Battle getting a little more run. And I asked him about, with Von Bell, do you give him a heads up that this is coming, or is it just kind of a surprise thing in the moment? And he said, no, they always let the guys know which series that they're going to be out and how this is going to play out. And, he said, quite candidly, Vaughn was not happy about it. He's like, no veteran wants to see their snaps taken away. But he said he's a captain for a reason, because he handles these things the right way. So, Vaughn's going to be there to help Jordan Battle along it feels like it's just inevitable that I don't know if it's going to get to 50-50 or if it's going to go into, if Battle's going to completely replace him, but you can just see it coming. Jordan Battle's getting more and more snaps each week. And if he continues to play like he did against the Giants, he took a big step forward. That percentage is going to get higher and higher.
Yeah, you would think so. They're giving him a chance, and they're doing it like with a lot of these guys. I mean, they're giving them opportunities and letting it grow if they decide to, if they play well enough to be part of the answer. Because they have to at this point. There's too many problems, and they're looking for some of these young guys to start to assert themselves. Really similar to what Jordan did last year. I mean, where he kind of eventually around this time of year started getting a little bit of a role displacing Nick Scott. Before you know it, he was the guy back there. So perhaps that's what happens again this year. But we'll continue to keep an eye on that. He talked about standing up in front of the team and addressing the fact that they have never won in Cleveland, this collection of coaches. The last time being 2017. They've never gotten off that bus happy. And there's been a number of different reasons for that, obviously, but it has been an issue. I mean, they've just not been able to go up there and play well. The Cleveland defense specifically has their number. Nick Chubb has had their number. There's been a lot of reasons for it. But they're not hiding from it, and certainly using it as kind of part of motivation in a week where the opponent is 1-5 and offensively truly awful. I had to just ask an open-ended question to Lou yesterday of just what are you seeing from Deshaun Watson? Because these situations, of course, these coaches always just want to praise the opponent. You just want to constantly be saying all the nice things about how great they are. I mean, it's basically going to be like playing the 85 Bears or the greatest show on turf or one of the greatest thing you ever seen. And it's like, how do you say something nice about the way Deshaun Watson's playing right now? He handled it well, but it was a tiptoe. It was a lot of working around trying to figure out some words you can fit in there about how Deshaun's playing. I think it's obvious what's happening there, but Lou did a nice job tiptoeing, I thought.
Yeah, he did. And you mentioned it that they haven't won up there since 2017. Do you know who the referee was in 2017 when they won in Cleveland?
Let me guess. Let me think about it. Let me think about it for a second. Who could it be? Go ahead, Jay.
Ron Torbert.
There it is. The evil, villainous Ron Torbert.
Even though they won that game, the Bengals had 8 penalties and the Browns only had 4. So still a reason for the Bengals fans to be mad.
Yeah, you can always be mad at Ron Torbert. Sorry, I'm just having too much fun with it right now. Sorry, I apologize. All right, let's get into the main topic today. I want to talk a little bit about some offensive trends that we've kind of seen this year between run game and pass game. But one, I'm spending some time writing about T. Higgins because the one thing that has really stood out to me about T in recent, since he's come back this season, hasn't just been that he's been solid. I mean, he's catching everything thrown his way. Of course, everyone the other night, and and you're seeing him so much. God, they're just working the hell out of him on these in breakers where he's catching those digs, he's catching slants. We spent a lot of time last week, and Joe Burrow talked about him having elite body control because he's throwing it up and below and behind him on those, and he just snags every single one of them. The thing that kind of stood out to me, though, was it felt like more than ever after those catches, he's really getting after it after the catch and trying to break tackles, lowering his shoulder, getting after it. When I asked Joe Burrow about that yesterday, he had this to say about what he's seeing from T. Higgins and being a little bit more gritty when he's out there.
I think he's gotten better at that year to year. You really saw him find for extra yards on Sunday. He did a great job of doing that, and really the last couple of years he has. Rookie T, his pop-up game wasn't quite as good, but now he gets hit and pops right back up. You don't have to hold your breath every time. His pop-up game has improved a lot, so that's been good to see.
He kind of gets quantified and thought of probably as more of a finesse receiver just because of his athleticism. But you've seen him. Do you feel like that's a misnomer about his game a little bit?
I think he's playing with a chip on his shoulder this year. I think his level of urgency since we came back has been high. He's been excited about his ability to go out and make plays this year, and he's continuing to show that he can. He's going to continue to get a lot of opportunities. And when he gets the ball in his hand, he's been lowering his shoulder and getting those extra 4 or 5 yards, which the way teams play us has been big. So big-time player, makes big-time plays in big-time spots. He's going to continue to do that.
There's Joe Burrow from his Wednesday press conference, and Zach Taylor said he's playing as well as he's ever played. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. The interesting thing that Joe mentioned was the way that they're using him. Those yards have been really important. His average depth of target is down quite a bit. I mean, we haven't seen hardly any of those deep shots to T that you're used to seeing. It's been a lot of underneath, and Jamar has been getting a lot of the over-the-top stuff. And so that's really been necessary to make those plays successful. I'll point out one more stat and throw it to you, Jay. Missed tackles forced per reception over T. Higgins' career. So how many times he catches the ball and how many times it takes to him to get to force a missed tackle. 2020, it was 1 in every 11. In 2021, it was 1 in every 7.5. In 2022, it was 1 in every 12.3 receptions. In 2023, it was 1 in every 10.5 receptions. This year, 1 in every 5.
Yeah.
It's not, yak. You look at a yak stat, right? And he's going to be in the middle of the pack. He's not, because he hasn't had catch and break free. They have been tough. They have forced him to really have to almost carry guys at some point and get him to fall off, which is just not something, like I kind of asked Joe, it's just kind of not something you think about with T. You think of him big, athletic, going up top and making these plays. He's been tough. And I think that is that chip on the shoulder that you see, that grit, and they've really needed that from him. And those missed tackles have shown that and added an extra bit to his game to turn some of those plays that are 10 yards into 14, or in the case of the other night, 5 into 24. He broke 2 tackles and was carrying dudes, and it's like, okay, T, we see it. You see that. That's what a chip on the shoulder looks like.
Not just the chip on the shoulder, but the girth in the wallet. I mean, that's been the knock on him, is he can't stay healthy. And if he keeps doing this, if he keeps taking shots like that and stays healthy and through the year, yeah, his value is only going to go up, because that is the only knock you can put on that guy is the injury history. And what I think is remarkable about him is, and some of those pictures that were up there as Joe's clip was playing, he was holding the ball like you would want to see a guy, but he makes these catches a lot of times away from his body, and he gets hit before he has time to tuck that ball away. And you're thinking, oh my God, that ball is going to come out. And it doesn't. He just has, his grip is incredible. And I just, the way they're using him is impressive, but just the shots he's taken and the way he holds onto the ball and doesn't fumble, that's what's really kind of stood out to me.
They've had to throw him into traffic a lot because of the way that they're using him too. It seems like he's been catching and getting hit, and he hasn't just been conceding. the old school Chad style where he just goes down right afterwards. And so that's one part of this. Okay, here I got you, Jay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Here's the one that I want to point out, though. This is something that I did when I was going through the T. Higgins 4-part series in the offseason, was compiled general stats when you had all three of them out there. Healthy Burrow. So I counted that as week 5 on last year. Healthy Burrow, Chase, and T on the field together. Okay, and what those numbers looked like. And it showed that how good they really were last year in that small quantity, only 121 snaps they were on the field together last year. Well, let's take a look at this chart. I updated it with this year's stats, plays that they're on the field together. They are blowing everything out of the water. They've never been better, and it isn't close. Okay. The most notable ones to me, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see them up here, but you're talking about yards per play at 7.4 is a high. The previous high was 7.2 and way back in 2021, and as low as 5.6 in 2022. Success percentage never been higher, 55.6. The previous high was last year's 53.7. How about this? EPA per play. The previous high was 0.14. So let's just read all these off. 2021. 0.06, 2022, 0.03, 2023, 0.14. This year, 0.34 when they're out there. Unbelievable jump. Adjusted net yards per attempt goes from 6.5 to 6.5 to 7.2, 8.8 adjusted net yards per attempt right now. First downs per attempt in the past have been 38, 37, 37, 48% right now, first downs per attempt when they're out there. Third down conversion percentage went from 39, 49, 44, all the way up to 56%. Passer rating for Burrow, 106.5, 106.8, 102.6. This year, 122.8. The three of them out there together has just never been better. And I said it earlier this week. I don't know how you don't sit in that front office right now and be like, we got to find a way. You just got to find a way. This is silly. They're so good right now when they're all out there together. And the way that they have set this offense up to be successful, and even running the game. I mean, running game, 5.3 yards per rush when they're all out there together, too. The threat of it keeps those open, and Chase Brown's taking advantage of it. It has been remarkable what they've been able to do out there together this year. Now, bad defenses, all that stuff can be taken into account, but, man, I was blown away at how far above what even the best they had done before this year has been for the three of them.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even use the bad defense argument because the 4 games that T's play, I mean, Baltimore is not a bad defense. Giants certainly weren't a bad defense last week, so they faced some 50-50. The Panthers weren't great. Obviously, Commanders terrible. But it's interesting because the chart you posed, when you originally did that chart in the offseason, and it's like, wow, this is what it looks like when they're all on the field together. And you're thinking, if those numbers happen again, they're going to be good. And they're blowing those out of the water right now. It's just been amazing. And I don't know. It's not just the way he's playing, but the way he's gone about it. He made the trade request and all that, but to come in at or sign the tag at the end of OTAs, then come in the way that he has and just put his head down and go to work and does everything the right way. You're right. I do think this has to give some pause to that front office and make them think they've got the money to do it. You're going to have to make some concessions elsewhere, but if it keeps going like this, and really, they haven't got Yoshi involved as much, and it feels like this running game is only going to get better. I mean, the numbers, we could be sitting here 6 weeks from now and saying this was the numbers add a column to your chart, and this was at week 6. Now look where it's at week 12. It can keep just soaring. I mean, there's no reason to think that this offense can't still improve on what they're doing already. So it's just what he has meant to this team. I don't know if you can quantify it other than you did quantify it with that chart, but the intangible part of it, just what he means in that locker room, has really been something to take notice of.
Yeah, I mean, he's understated naturally. He's overshadowed by Jamar. Jamar is a much bigger figure and gets all these things, but gosh, it's just he's so much the really the core of what makes them special. You know, a lot of teams have a special guy, but the fact that they have somebody who fits so perfectly on the other side of Jamar as a compliment it has made them really an incredible combo over the years. But it's obviously as they get better and he's super motivated, it's showing. The other side of that that we want to mention here is the running game. I mean, and I talked about it a little bit. I wrote about it in a story that I had up earlier this week about Chase Brown and pointed out like that fumble is a reminder of one of the knocks on him when he was coming out was, hey, this guy had 5 fumbles his last year at Illinois, and that was a problem. So when you start giving him more carries, what's it going to look like? But that's the only thing that can stop him from playing more. And I would fully expect his role to continue to grow because how good he has been. So I wanted to quantify that as well. I'm it's like Paul's got charts, right? Can I that be my offshoot? It's like the Joni loves Chachi of Jay's Got Stats. So Paul's got charts here. I got another one, and this one just shows the success percentage versus the explosive percentage. So are you getting big runs, and are you consistently getting quality runs that aren't necessarily breaking free? And there's Tyler Algier and Chase Brown are living in a corner of this chart all by themselves, with Chase Brown and Algier both tied for the league lead in explosive percentage of runs of 12 yards or more. And then Chase also being up in that top elite quadrant in just regular success percentage, up at 47% with only 2 people up over 50. He has really been special. Zach Moss not in those areas, and I think that you'll see him continue to phase out a little bit more, but just shows where Chase Brown has been. And Dan Pitcher yesterday was talking a little bit about sort of the variance in the way that they've done things in the run game has been a little bit riskier sometimes, where occasionally you'll leave a guy, you're counting on a guy not coming in unblocked, which is like a perfect example is that play that a lot of people have referenced where it looked like Gesicki was tasked with blocking Brian Burns. He's like, well, we leave that open on purpose as a risk that you're willing to take, thinking that the only thing the defensive end can do is guess and try to knife inside. If that happens and they guess, then they can come through. No one's expecting Gesicki to make that block, but you're hoping that if he doesn't, you get the speed to blow through the hole and get extra blockers out in front and chance to get those explosive stuff that they have made good on this year. In the different ways that they've incorporated different styles into the run game has helped them find that, and Chase has really, really benefited.
Yeah, and it's the in the past it was all about efficiency and not having those negative runs. But when you've got the high end part of it, that with all the explosive that he has, and it's not just making up for negative runs with explosive runs. It's think about what Burrow and this offensive or this passing game have done. The touchdown came on 3rd and long, the one that Burrow took off running on, the 3rd and 12, the pass to Yoshi. It's not a death sentence when they get in 3rd and long. They can overcome these kind of things. So it's worth taking a little bit of a gamble. And I'm not sure on this chart of yours is Zach Moss. I'm not sure, these headshots are a little small, but he hasn't been bad. He's had explosive runs too, but it's just he's not quite where Chase Brown is. And that's why I agree with you. You're going to start seeing more and more of Chase kind of becoming more of the lead back. But if they can keep this up, you can keep taking those gambles. They can overcome the negative play here and there, and they have. That's exactly what they've done. They had I think a handful of negative runs in that Giants game, and when you convert in third and teens, that's a small price to pay.
It is. So it's been something else. Let's talk a little bit about now as they move forward to the Browns, and that means what? It means planning for Myles Garrett. And that was kind of obviously a topic this week as we sat down with offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher. So here's a little bit of Dan Pitcher yesterday, starting with planning for Myles Garrett.
Pitch, when you put a plan together for the Browns, does it literally start with how do we block Myles Garrett and go from there?
Yeah. I mean, it's up there as the priorities. My scheme background prior to this year was very much in the known passing down situation. So it was always at the forefront of my thought process was solve that problem first, and then within whatever you're able to build that solves that or tries to solve that problem, obviously, like he's a dynamic player, then you can decide what you want to do down the field. I think you get in trouble where if you start the other way and you come up with all these great ideas of how to attack the back end of the defense, and then you try to retrofit those ideas to the protection part. And that's, to me, you're doing it backwards. So, it really starts with their best players, of which he is. Yeah. They got really good ones, and he's the best. So starts with him.
Is he playing as well as he? I mean, it kind of gets lost with how all the losing and everything. But is he playing as well as he? Ever
I mean, he's yes, and that the statement you just made. It's like, and that we've been very clear with our guys, and we got a lot of smart guys that understand it. It's like this unit is not the caliber of the defensive unit is not reflected by their current record. That's very clear. And neither is how hard they're playing and all. I mean, these guys are every bit as challenging as they've always been. And so our guys got to understand that. They will, and we'll put a good plan together.
Understanding that every game has had unique circumstances, but what is it about them and this group that has been so tough for you guys, that's given you guys fits?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
is it just Garrett? I mean, it's just a problem.
Yeah, I mean, he's a problem for everybody. I mean, he's a defensive player of the year candidate year after year after year. And so we're not the only ones that he gives issues to. But we're the ones that have to play him this week. So, it's our problem right now. And so, he's a big part of it. Their overall team speed is up there with the best, if not the best, at all three levels of the defense. Speed, power on the defensive line. JOK is maybe the fastest linebacker in football, most explosive linebacker, one of. And then they got corners that can run and play man coverage. So they challenge you, and you got to be at your best. Obviously you mentioned it. I mean, there was probably some mitigating circumstances in one of the games we played them last year. The second game they didn't play anybody, so kind of two weird deals there. But we know the challenge. We got to go up there ready to play our best football if we're going to come out of there with a win, because they're good.
There's Dan Pitcher with us on Wednesday. Myles Garrett, Bengals fans know he's been a problem, whether it's getting his hand up to force to get a ball batted and get an interception, or just constantly watching him whip Jonah Williams around the edge or whatever. And Orlando Brown has talked to Orlando a little bit yesterday about facing Myles Garrett. He's had tons of one-on-ones with Myles over the years. And he's like, there are some where he's just different, and you just got to understand that he's going to get some of his. He feels like he loves it and looks forward to the challenge of the stuff like that, all the things you expect him to say. And it's been okay over the years, and they need him to be able to hang in there some, but still expect lots of attention and chips and things like that.
Yeah, you have to with that guy. And he is – I was curious what his numbers were against Burrow specifically and where they rank as far as players who have sacked another quarterback the most. And Myles Garrett has sacked Joe Burrow 8 times. Since 2020, that's the most of any single rusher against any single quarterback. He has 16 hits against Joe Burrow in that time, tied for the most. Nick Bosa also has 16 hits against Matthew Stafford. And in terms of pressures, he has 21 That's tied for the second most. Max Crosby has 24 pressures against Justin Herbert. And this is in 6 games. Burrow's missed a couple he's missed a couple games that they played against the Browns and Myles Garrett, although Garrett didn't play last year either in that finale. But he's just a terror. And it's the one thing that I wonder about is they do move him around quite a bit, and he tends to line up over the left tackle a little bit more. But I wonder if we see him on the other side on Sunday and have him just go against a rookie in Amarius Mims. Mims is a freak. He's his size and athleticism, and that makes you think that he can at least hold his ground against Myles Garrett. But so much of what Myles does is just his intelligence and his knowing how to set guys up. And he's been doing this for years. This is all still kind of new to Mims. Or do they go the other way and put him against Orlando Brown and figure that there are other pass rushers, that Arius Smith and those guys, JOK, even when he comes up, have them go against Amarius Mims? I'm really interested to see how often those two go head to head and how Mims does against Garrett.
Well, for more insight on how the Bengals and Browns look to match up, there's no better place to go than to our good friend in Cleveland, the Athletics, Zach Jackson. Let's go to Zach. All right, if you're watching on YouTube, first of all, thank you. Great to have you here. Hope you are enjoying looking at our beautiful faces. We should let you know, hey, go look around. It's probably over here, over there, or something like that. You can find our conversation with Zach Jackson, which has been up on YouTube since we recorded it on Wednesday. You can watch that individually. Go do that now. Pause. Come back. We'll still be here for you. We're going to get through everything else. So, all right, here we go. All right, great to catch up with Zach. Awesome stuff as always. You know what I feel for Zach this year, Jay? Yeah. He's been through some tough ones, right? He's seen some tough seasons. He's been covering the team forever, okay? And so there's been a lot of lean years, a lot of tough situations to write about, to cover. This has to top them all, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it couldn't. It's the 1 and 5. He's been through that a lot. But the whole Deshaun Watson situation with the money they're paying him, with how poorly he's playing, the questions about Stefanski. I mean, he was coach of the year last year. Now you're wondering about his job. It's a dumpster fire of all dumpster fires. I am really intrigued about what he said. Where they have to announce the offense and they have to announce Nick Chubb last. Do they do Deshaun Watson first and get the boos out of the way? Or is there going to be this stark, okay, Deshaun Watson gets announced 10th and the stadium rains down with boos, and then they go Chubb and it goes the complete other way with cheers? I think that's going to be really intriguing to watch in pregame, not warm-ups, pregame introductions.
No doubt. I just feel for Zach, everything really ever since Deshaun Watson showed up there, everything that they've had to go through. You know what makes me want to do? Send that man some ice cream. Okay.
Yes.
He needs it. If anybody is Graders worthy, is our guy Zach Jackson, who has absolutely been through the ringer, and he's such a good dude about it, and always happy to join and keep it real, keep it 100, as the kids say. So we're going to keep it 100, and we're going to send him a delicious 6-pack, the 6-pack shipper of Graders. You can send it to anywhere in the United States, and they will get delicious on dry ice, all the ice cream. It's a great thing to think about. We talk about it all the time because we've taken ice cream with us to when we go visit family in Philadelphia over Thanksgiving. It's like, you want to contribute. You're going out of town to go visit relatives for Thanksgiving. What am I going to do? It's hard to bring food. Am I going to bake? No, just ship it ahead of you. You don't have to bring anything. You just ship Raiders and you're the hit of the party and you didn't do anything other than hit the button. So highly recommend doing that. Tell your family they're Graders worthy. I mean, be a hero, right? Just like Zach, our guy. So Graders worthy for sure. All right. Let's get into it here a little bit. Nick Chubb, it's the one thing that was kind of interesting here, is what will the impact of Chubb be on this offense? Can they just go full Bengals with Corey Dillon and Achilles Smith, Scott Mitchell against the Broncos, and see if Nick Chubb can go for 1,000,000 yards and they hardly throw the ball. It certainly feels like an option.
It does. I wonder if we see Lou kind of take a same approach that he did against Baltimore, because if you think about it, they held Derrick Henry to 41 yards in regulation. He had the 51 in overtime, and you're just living with Lamar Jackson making plays, and he did. He beat him almost single-handedly. You don't have to worry about that with Deshaun Watson. And they just traded their best receiver in Amari Cooper, as Zach talked about. So, yeah, load up and do everything you can to stop Nick Chubb. That it wasn't just the Baltimore game. The Bengals played really good run defense against the Giants. I know that's kind of a night and day situation when you're talking about Tyrone Tracy and versus Derrick Henry, but I think you're going to see them make that their sole focus of stopping Nick Chubb. And even it's not like he's going to get 30 carries, you wouldn't think. They're going to have to manage his workload in his first game back in 13 months. But that has been a big reason for this losing streak, for this skid against the Browns, for the way they played against the division in general. It's just the inability to stop the run, and they've got everybody back. They're feeling better about the defense. This is going to be a huge test. This is when you're going to know if it's real or not, if they can contain Chubb in this Cleveland Browns running game, because you don't really worry about that passing game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it looks a lot like what they did against Baltimore, except you don't have the threat of Lamar Jackson being able to burn you on the other end. It's like you load up, you run blitz, you keep everything in. I mean, they're not going to try to throw the ball over the top of your head successfully anyway. So load up, run blitz, stop Chubb, make sure that you force Deshaun Watson to beat you, which he hasn't been able to beat anything thus far. And I think the game plan does look pretty similar to what we saw Lou Anarumo break out against Baltimore. Makes all the sense in the world. By the way, on a side note, I just asked Logan Wilson, like, can you help me? As someone who's never going to go through anything remotely like this, what it's like to try to tackle Nick Chubb. And his face was just like, whew, I don't even know that I could explain it. Like, it's just, you really don't realize like what these dudes go through and like how hard something that, teams have to try to linebackers have to try to do every single week in this league, but to try to like in the open field, chase him down, know you're going to be trying to put a pounding on this dude who is just an absolute beast with the thickest legs and squat power and everything else you could ever think of. I don't know, man. I don't know I honestly don't know how any of these guys play this game, tell you the truth though. So it's just insane.
You ask for help. That's how you do it. You don't try to get him down one-on-one.
Exactly. Help me. All right. Let's get into some of our segments here. Run, pass, or boot. What are we going to do for run, pass, or boot this week, Jay?
Yeah, I had a couple of them. I wanted to go back, though. Can I skip back real quick?
Yeah, skip back. Freewheel.
Mentioned something on the stat, the sack stat, because, it is Myles Garrett, number one, with the 8 sacks against Burrow. But they're just outside of the top 10. There's 10 guys that have at least 5.5 sacks against a single quarterback, but just outside of the top 10, tied for 11th, there's 3 Bengals connections. One, Sheldon Rankins has 5 career sacks against Burrow in 3 games. So maybe Burrow happier than anybody to see Sheldon Rankins as a teammate this year. Trey Hendrickson, 5 sacks in 5 games against Patrick Mahomes. And former Bengal Carlos Dunlap on that list. He has 5 sacks against Kyler Murray in Arizona. So I thought that was interesting that the Bengals connections there. Do we want to do both run, pass, or boots, or do we? Because I had a Bengals.
More the merrier. I say more the merrier. Let's go.
All right, great.
Do it.
So we'll start with the Browns centric one. Both of these are going to be what happens first in the game. So for the Browns, what happens first? A Myles Garrett sack, a Nick Chubb explosive run, or stifle your laughter, a Deshaun Watson explosive pass.
Well, you know what? Despite how bad the Bengals defense has been this year, the one thing that they still rank highly in the league is explosive plays allowed. They've been okay at that. They've allowed insane efficiency to other teams, but they've been pretty good at stopping explosives. And Deshaun being as bad as he is, I'm booting that over the moon. I I will say Myles Garrett sack happens first, Chubb run next, Watson pass last, if at all.
Yeah, I'm with you there because I do think that Myles, if you said only one thing was going to happen in the game, I would go Myles Garrett sack. So that the first thing I would go with him. And I think Chubb's probably going to get one or two, but it might be one of those, pound, and then it breaks, especially with the way the Bengals are going to play him. So I do expect it to happen, but not right away. All right, for the Bengals centric one, I kind of mentioned it before. They've been really good at overcoming these 3rd and longs. So what happens first? The Bengals convert a 3rd and 11 or longer. Someone other than Trey Hendrickson records a sack, or a Ryan Rico 55-plus punt.
Ooh, wow. Okay. All right. I will say let's start with someone other than Hendrickson gets a sack. We've seen Watson go down a ton. He's been, they've got their full waves that they're coming in now. I feel like you could, even if Hendrickson is the one that forces the pressure, you could see someone else get the sack. So I'm gonna go with someone other than Hendrickson gets a sack, and then I'm gonna go with Rico 55-plus punt, and I'm gonna say convert 3rd and 11. I'm gonna boot. I feel like that was, they had some big ones last week, but I don't know how much they have interest in dropping back on 3rd and 11 with Myles Garrett. So if you have to boot one, I'm going to boot that one. Every Rico punt ends up being 55-plus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a pretty good chance if he gets out there, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I thought about running with him, but I'm not. I'm going to run with your boot. I'm going to run with the 3rd and 11 because the Browns are probably going to have some sacks, and the Bengals are probably going to be facing some 3rd and longs. Or if they don't, you have Ron Torbert. He could call a holding penalty. He could call any kind of penalty to put him in 3rd and long. So I think they're going to have opportunities to have 3rd and longs, and they're going to get one. And then I'll pass on the Rico 55-yard punt, and I'll boot the sack. I think it's going to happen. I just don't know it's going to happen first.
All right. Gotcha. Okay. Good one. Two quality run passer boots there for all of you to play those games with your friends at home as well. All right. Arby's. Jay, you got any Arby's for me before we get into our Growler Bet and predictions?
Yeah. So yesterday, it's new. I know we've talked a little bit about it, but the players are wanting to do interviews outside of the locker room. And so they had scheduled Trey Hendrickson to talk to the media right after practice yesterday. And they weren't really sure what to expect. Bengals PR said there could be one person out there. There could be nobody. There could be a mob. We'll see when we get out there. And as he's walking out to do his interview, Joey Bose, the strength coach, kind of said, "Oh yeah, have fun talking to the media," and gives him a little hair tussle. They come through the locker room door and they see a mob of reporters waiting to talk to Trey. And Trey asked Bengals media relations director Emily Parker if he could use her front camera, and she's holding her camera up facing him, and he's fixing his hair in her phone so he can come out and talk to the media. It was just it was an amusing little scene before he actually came out and talked. And he doesn't talk a lot, so it was appreciated that he came out and talked. And he talked for a while. He stood there, and he wasn't short, he wasn't curt. He answered every question, and he was happy to leave when it was over.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. Mine is sort of a little tangential to that, in that there was this thing going on in the stadium there's tons of giant skeletons and scary stuff with some sort of a haunted house. And it was something called Who Days Halloween or something like Who Days Halloween Haunt. So they're doing some sort of a Halloween thing in the stadium. And so there's all kinds of these skeletons and this. And I thought, shouldn't there just be cutouts of Trey Hendrickson everywhere? I feel like they would fit in even better than just these skeletons. You talk about something that's scary is if you think actually Trey Hendrickson is sneaking up behind you around a corner. I think that would have been maybe even a better way to go. I'll take that over a witch on a broom, or maybe Trey Hendrickson on a broom. I feel like there's a bunch of different ways that you could go, but some of the scarier players, mainly Trey, I think not doing his hair inside of a iPhone camera, I think maybe would have been a good thing to add into that. But yeah, Who Days Halloween. Who knew? I didn't know Who Day was so active in the Halloween world. Who knew he was throwing parties in the background? Good for him.
Well, and Houda's, I mean, that's kind of it's kind of kid centric, I would think. And there are some scary looking things in there. Are they trying to scare their fans? And there's this giant 12-foot werewolf right outside of the locker room. That's what would be funny, to put like a Trey Hendrickson mask on that werewolf.
Or you do like, what was it last year during the social video? Didn't Mike Hilton pretend to be the mannequin that was in the uniform? I think that's what you do to kids, is you have an actual player pretending to be the mannequin again and then jumping out at somebody else. Now, if we're really trying to give an experience for Houda's Halloween, that's the one that we do. I got ideas. We do nothing but produce content ideas here.
You bet,
people. I mean,
you better have a cleanup crew if you're going to do that, because there's going to be some kids squirting the floor.
Clean up on aisle 5. All right, let's go. It is Growler Bet time. So because it's the Growler Bet, I do have to revert back to when we did the results from last week. I feel bad. I teased a song and then I just skipped over it and sort of forgot. So I do want to shout out William Jacob for a song that he sent in, and I appreciate the effort. He had it was from Little John. It had multiple references to things that we talked about, to Lawrence Guy's pants dropping down. He called us mother growlers. I really liked everything about it. I didn't do the whole effort then. I'm not going to bring it back now, but I want to make sure William gets his shout out that he did deserve last week. Love the effort. Love the creativity. Even had the Little John Dave Chappelle gif, and you always will get a shout out when you do that. Shout out to you for that. Thank you, William. All right. That said, this week, here's what we're going to do. As you know, the Growler Podcast at gmail.com is where you want to be sending your submissions. The word growler somewhere, or growl really somewhere in the header. And if it's funny, we will give you the props that you deserve, as we just did for William. You can still use Twitter, hashtag Bengals Growler Bet, used on Twitter, and we will find it there with your submission. And the winner will win a bar tab at one of our live shows. And if you can't make it to one of our live shows, don't worry, we'll figure out something delightful for you. So that is the Growler Bet. This week, there's only one thing we could do. You know what it is? Yeah, that's right. We have to bring in the evil Ron Torbert into the Growler Bet. Let's do it. Is this our first referee Growler Bet, Jay?
Yeah, this is back-to-back weeks we've never done before Growler Bets. Last week it was the final score. This week it's a referee Growler Bet. We're gonna do combined penalty yards in the game. Again, Ron Torbert, second in the league, averaging 130 penalty yards per game. Led the league last year.
And in fairness, Ron Torbert could be a delightful man.
Sure
he could be an absolute peach. Right? There's just a history here, and it does strike. It just cuts open a lot of old wounds inside of Bengals fans. And so we play it up. I'd actually like to meet him and apologize for this bit a little bit, because it is painting him as evil. I don't think he's evil. I just know how Bengals fans feel about him. That said, you mentioned it earlier, 16 flags per game. And averaging 130 penalty yards this year, Ron Torbert. Last year, it was 12.2 that he led the league with. He's already more than that. I really look forward to that. Love penalty-ridden games in Cleveland. It's just aesthetically pleasing. So that said, I'm going to say that Ron cleans up his act a little bit. I think he hears about this bit. He knows he's feeling evil. He knows his numbers are getting a little out of control. His crew tries to bring it down a notch. I'm going to say 90. 90 total penalty yards combined between the two teams. He goes below his average. That's my number for this week.
I'm going the other way. I think he watched that Monday night game between the Bills and the Jets and saw the 22 penalties for 200-some yards, said, oh, no, Adrian Hill, you're not catching me. I'm winning the title again this year. So I'm gonna go 165. I think we're gonna see a penalty fest. It just feels weird things happen in Cleveland, and that could be the weird thing. This could be a very aesthetically ugly game. If it like as Monday night was, that was hard to watch. It was just no flow to the game. It seemed like every play there was a penalty. I'm gonna go for the big one, 165.
I please no. By the way, soapbox moment here. The NFL needs to step in. It is out of control, the amount of penalties in these games. It is ruining so many games. Like, I don't know what is going on exactly, or if there's a way to just be like, guys, we've got to figure out how to not throw so many flags, whether it be this holding or that or loosening up. I don't know what it is, but it really makes so many of these games unwatchable when they end up like that. And I know that certain teams, like, hey, they commit penalties, you want them called. You want to get it right and all that. And I get it. But, like, golly, it's hard to take in some of these games when they just continually, every play you're looking, is there a flag, or waiting to see the flag, or like, hey, there's a flag thrown, but it actually isn't a flag, or waving it off, and you've got to wait to celebrate and look around. It's just, it ruins so many big moments. It ruins the flow. It ruins everything. I'm over all the flags all the time in so many NFL games. So, Ron, if you're listening, if you're hearing me, please clean up your act. That's him saying no right there. Refusing to listen. All right, Ron. All right, there's our Growler Bet for this week. Send it into the growlerpodcast@gmail.com. Of course, you can always hurry up, quick, get to it. Send in questions or comments or ambush or anything you want to for Who Dey Light on Friday for our 100th episode. I'll be doing that with Mark, and we'll get to everything there. Or anything else you want to talk to us about. Maybe you want to talk to us about our live show on the 27th. Let us know that you're coming, and make sure you can get a table and all that other stuff. Well, just send it to us, and we'll get you hooked up. We're here to help you. If we just want to try to be Graders worthy, we've gotten some Graders worthy submissions in the email. We love that too. We'll always give you shout outs. We're always looking for that. So make sure you send that to us. All right. That leads us to the grand finale moment. That is predictions. Jay, what do you got?
Yeah, I again, aesthetically not pretty. I think this is going to be a muck, grinded out kind of game, similar to what we saw last week. I think the penalties could be a big part of that. These teams don't like each other as division rivals. When you have a team that is on a losing streak like this, there's always the opportunity for a few 15-yard penalties. There's the chance for PIs, for pass interferences down the field, to add to that penalty yardage. I don't see either team being super efficient in this game offensively, and I think it's going to be an Evan McPherson type of game. Bengals get in the end zone once, but Evan McPherson comes through with 4 field goals, and the Bengals win it 19-14.
Yeah, I think the Browns stink and the Bengals are better by a pretty decent amount. And I think that, this offense is going to keep going, is going to be more like the team that it was, through that stretch of stretch of 4 games than they were last week. And I just don't see a world where the Browns score consistently. I mean, look, they went 26 straight third downs. They one touchdown in their last how many drives? 29. I mean,
29, yeah.
It's crazy. So, and we saw what the Bengals defense can be. They're healthy. I think they hold Deshaun Watson to exactly what we've seen from the Browns through 6 weeks. Just an inept offense that gets somewhere in the teens, probably with some help from a defensive score, maybe. So I have the Bengals. I think the Bengals win 27-13 and kind of start the process of building their way back and gaining that confidence and getting their first kind of big win, a first win where they weren't sweating at the end. I feel like we start to see that turn a little bit for them now as they go up to Cleveland and exercise the demons, as they like to say, and get that first time they can get on that bus happy. as opposed to what Lou Anarumo pointed out to his defense earlier this week. All right. Thanks, everybody, listening. Again, a reminder, Who Dey Light coming your way on Friday. And then Jay and I, of course, will have the walkout for you after the game on Sunday evening. So make sure you check back in for that, whether on YouTube or just listening to your preferred podcast platform. You know we've got you. We are here for you. And we certainly hope that you aren't haunted by the ghost of one Ron Torbert in Sunday's game.
Talk
Have a
about
good one,
exercising
everybody.
demons.